Welcome. This video is to provide helpful guidance to remote workers for connecting Sangoma phones to your PBXact. I'm going to explain the administration configuration requirements when working as a remote admin worker. For provisioning remote phone, we need to have a look at different modules of PBXact. Of course, there are some prerequisites. Users and extensions are already created, network configuration is fully set up, and system is reachable from the external world to the internet users. We are going to configure the PBX so that remote workers can be connected either with a manual setup of the phone or with a zero-touch provisioned one. The modules we are going to check are the system admin in the admin section, the firewall in the connectivity section, and the endpoint manager in the settings. In the system admin module, we can check the dynamic DNS, provisioning protocols, intrusion detection, and port management sections. Let's access the module, going into Modules and System Admin, and visit the dynamic DNS section, where we can find a dynamically generated FQDN based on our current IP address and active deployment ID. In the provisioning protocols, we can see the current active protocol for provisioning, and in this case we are using the TFTP or the HTTP without authentication. Under the intrusion detection module, we can set up a list of whitelisted IP or networks to avoid us being locked out the system. And going to the port management, we can choose which port assigned to each of the services running on the PBX. HTTP provisioning, for example, is listed on port 84. In the firewall modules, we are going to check the responsive firewall, interfaces, network, and services section. Let's access the module, and first of all, check the system firewall is enabled, responsive firewall activated on the SIP interfaces. All interfaces must be assigned to a default zone. The one facing the internet has to be assigned to the Internet Default Firewall Zone. Here in the network, you can add individual host or network to override the default permission for an interface. In the services, we can check which services are exposed to the internet. In the extra services, we can see other services that may need to be exposed to internet. Here comes an important topic and a common mistake. It is not required to expose services to the internet. It may be necessary only in some particular circumstances. The responsive firewall will take care of opening the port to the registered phone and to registered users. In the advanced settings, we can check information on the zone defined on the system about firewall and the port assigned to each service running on the system. We are now going to explore the Endpoint Manager module, which is responsible for phone provisioning. We are going to have a look at the global setting, brand Sangoma, extension mapping sections. Let's access the module going into Modules, Settings, and then Endpoint Manager. In the global setting, we can check and set the internal address or the external address where the services are running. And we can double check here the port we configured before for services running on the system. We can also check the firewall zone. Here it is important to check the phone admin password. This is the password which will be set to the phone when they are provisioned. Same thing is for the user phone password. By default, these two are 6x2 for the admin password and 6x1 for the user phone password. Let's move to brand Sangoma. Here we can find templates. A template is a collection of common settings for a range of phones defined by the system administrator. I created a template called Sangoma Default External. As you can see here, this is the default external template, which means this template contains the setting will be sent to the provisioned phones even if they are not mapped to an extension. In the external template, we have to inform phones to send their registration to the SIP external destination address. The provisioning requests are expected to be received on the HTTP protocol and directed to the external address we've previously defined. Each tab on the top allows you to define specific settings based on the phone model, the regional location, etc. Click on Save and Rebuild Config and Apply, and the system will create all the needed files in the background for you. We need to create an association between the account and the phone so that the PBXact can provision the phone with the right information. Let's go into the Settings, Endpoint Manager menu. Let's choose on the right menu the extension mapping, which allows us to map an extension to a specific phone. The extension in this case is 311, account 1, select brand Sangoma, input the MAC address of the phone we want to provision, choose a template, in this case is external templates because we are reaching the server from the outside world, choose the right phone model, and then save and rebuild configs. And once clicking Use Selected, we will see the system display this line green, which means that the file has been created for provisioning. We need now to configure the redirection on the Sangoma portal to instruct phone on where to fetch their own configuration. From the Sangoma portal, go to the Sangoma phone and check for the MAC address of your phone. You will be prompted with the information of your phone. Click View, and here enable the redirection. In this case, we said we are going to use HTTP. We can put the FQDN of the server, port is 84, and that's it. The Endpoint Manager has been configured. Redirect server has been configured on the portal sangoma.com. Now it's time to boot up the phone so that it can ask the redirect server where to fetch the information for the phone configuration. The PBXact will provide the phone with the whole configuration we created through the association between the account and the template. The whole process takes around 3-4 minutes, but we have wrapped up everything together to show you in a faster way. I'm going to explain the end-user experience when working as a remote worker. Directed phones to PBXact. We need to tell the Sangoma phone how to reach the PBXact to receive its own configuration. And there are mainly two ways we can accomplish this when doing it remotely. So manually configure each phone on how to reach the PBX for configuration, or using Sangoma zero-touch redirect server. The manual configuration, of course, allows a full control on the phone where it should connect to the PBX, but on the other side requires manual setup and touching the phone, and on a factory reset, setting will be lost. The Sangoma zero-touch redirect server works on any network, regardless if phone is local or remote, so it's perfect in our case, and on a factory reset the phone will contact the redirect server again to fetch the configuration. Does not require the manual touching or configuration of the phone, and allows on a per-device basis to tell the phone what IP address it should reach out to for configuration. On the other side, the admin has to set up each phone inside the Sangoma portal where it should find its PBXact. Phone has to have access to the internet to reach the redirect server when it boots up from the factory. Let's have a look at the manual configuration. There are some prerequisites to check, so be sure admin already configured the network part, created phone accounts, configure the embedded responsive firewall to allow the remote connection, and give you details on how to reach the PBX. Let's get into the phone web GUI and do some configuration. So the phone will be able to fetch our phone and account settings from our PBXact server. Let's see how to retrieve the information for connecting to our S phone. Once we've noted down the phone IP address, we'll be able to connect through the web GUI and go on with the configuration. So click on the menu button, Status, and then Information. Here we can see the phone IP address we are looking for and then the MAC address we are going to use later. Once we know the IP address of our phone, we can access it and put in some configuration. The default credentials are username admin and password admin. Let's input them in our phone and then let's go under management in the auto provision. Here we can input the information given us by our administrator. In this case, we are going to use HTTP for provisioning protocol and working on port 84. This is the only information we have to input. Change the provisioning protocol here, save, and once saved, just click on Auto Provision Now and the phone will take its own configuration. When using zero-touch configuration with the redirect server, the user has nothing to do on his side, nothing more than just connecting the phone and wait for the phone to be provisioned. Let's see how this happens. The whole process takes around 3-4 minutes, but we have wrapped up everything together to show you in a faster way.